It's a meadow vole. But let's see if we can catch this guy. It's coming from the pool beyond here. Hello friends, I'm Will Michael and you're watching Connecticut Naturalist. We begin this week's episode with two special guests that arrived shortly after last week's thunderstorm. Last night's thunderstorm displaced two fledgling cedar waxwings. Both are perched in a flowering angel trumpet plant, waiting for their mother to find them. The thunderstorm produced tremendous winds, and the fledglings, who are new to flight, must have gotten separated from their parents. As they perch, the two siblings look like tiny gargoyles. At first glance, I wasn't sure if they were real or not. To illustrate the size of these young birds, I've let them perch on my fingers. They're surprisingly social. Waxwing parents usually continue to feed the fledglings for 1 to 2 weeks after they've left the nest. Our two maroon fledglings are capable of flying, but seem a little disoriented without their parents. To my surprise, one of them begins to call, and in the background, the parents echo a faint response. Don't ask me how, but one of the fledglings ended up perched on the top of my head. These poor little cedar waxwings were displaced by the storm. Hopefully the mother will come find them. It's hard to hear with all this traffic rushing by over the din of humanity. Whoa. The cedar waxwing earns its name because of a small splash of yellow plumage on the rear tip of the tail feathers. The yellow resembles a touch of golden candle wax. Waxwings have a black mask around their eyes and a crest of feathers on the top of the head. The fledglings continue to call, and eventually the parents hone in on their location. When filming had concluded, the family reunited underneath a nearby mulberry tree, a fitting place for a reunion. Berries are the primary food source of waxwings. It's always nice to see two lost birds reunited with their parents. The waxwings were lucky. The thunderstorm caused no other problems other than a few hours of separation. Up next, a kayak trip at Huntington State Park is the best way to survive the summer heat wave. Here's a look at some of the highlights. During early August, beautiful flowers bloom on the lake at Huntington State Park. The purple flowers cover the water and paint a surreal picture. The flowers come from a source that is often taken for granted in the flowering department: freshwater seaweed. The brown pondweed looks unassuming for most of the year, but on a particular week in midsummer, the weeds produce stems that stretch above the water's surface and riddle the lake with tiny purple flowers. It's by far the best time to be on the lake. And I'm not the only one out here today. A great blue heron hunts in the shallow water along the shore. The blue heron is the largest member of the heron family found in North America. This one walks stealthily, hunting fish, insects, turtle hatchlings, or amphibians in the shallows. Its long, razor-thin legs are perfect for moving inconspicuously through the water. When the heron stops moving, it remains remarkably still, with no movement. When prey comes into striking range, it thrusts its neck out rapidly, and its beak pierces through the water like a dagger. My kayak finally catches the heron's attention, and it flies away into a downed tree. As the sunlight beams down, the heron spreads its wings to dry its feathers. The temperature today is in the 90s, and it's hot for the heron as well. The heron spreads its wings and expands its feathers, increasing its surface area and allowing more air to pass over its body, thus cooling it. Blue herons range from 3 to 4.5 feet tall, with a wingspan ranging from 5.5 to 6.5 feet. The average lifespan in the wild is 15 years. The S-shaped neck is a distinguishing characteristic of the heron family during flight. Cranes are often confused with herons, but they fly with straight necks. Herons retain the S shape during flight. While kayaking in the afternoon at Huntington State Park in Redding, Connecticut, I discovered a cormorant gathering the last sunlight of the day. This bird is unusually tame, and I noticed that its legs were tagged by a state agency. This explains its familiarity with humans. Cormorants are excellent swimmers, and their hunting technique involves diving under the water and swimming to catch a fish. After surfacing, it flips the fish head first and swallows it whole. After fishing, cormorants often sun themselves on rocks or trees close to the water. Cormorants do not have as well-developed oil glands as other waterfowl, so they use the sunlight to help dry their feathers.
Remember that story we read in 3rd grade about the Japanese fisherman
Mm-hmm.
who would tie the cord around the cormorant's neck and it would fish? And then they would come up, they would take the fish out of its mouth. Remember that?
Stay tuned, folks. We've still got a lot more to come on this week's episode.
The grass is always greener on the other side. I try to live my life with peace of mind. The grass is always greener on the other side. I try to live a life in peace of mind. No matter where I stand or how far I roam, the grass is always greenest when I'm home. The grass is always greener on the other side. I always try to live a peaceful life. The grass is always greener.
August is usually a good time to observe butterflies in Saugatuck Park in Redding, Connecticut. An open field provides a rich habitat for butterfly bush, and butterflies from the surrounding area flock to drink its rich nectar. Every August, I visit an open field along the Saugatuck River where butterfly bush is in bloom. Spangled fritillaries, in particular, are attracted to the flowers in this field. The strong aroma of the butterfly bush is irresistible to the fritillaries. It was difficult to capture the fritillaries on video, but the day was not lost. Walking along the trail, I discovered all kinds of surprises at my feet, beginning with a tiny guest. I noticed many tiny creatures moving around on the path. At first glance, they appeared to be insects, but on closer inspection, we discover that they're newly transformed toads. This toad has just completed its metamorphosis from tadpole to toad. It's humbling to realize that this tiny creature, new to terrestrial life, has all the faculties and courage needed to survive in the wild. The ultimate example of self-reliance. Continuing along the trail, a young snapping turtle is traveling towards the Saugatuck River. Although it's small, this turtle is not a new hatchling. This is probably in its second year already. Newly hatched snapping turtles are even smaller than this specimen. Its shell is firm, but not nearly as strong as the adults. And at this young age, our turtle friend is still susceptible to predation by raccoons, otters, and herons. Camouflage is its best defense. Even the animals choose the path of least resistance. Our final trail partner is a pickerel frog. The surrounding field is located with all sorts of flowers that attract insects, and a frog knows that here a meal will be easy to find. Pickerel frogs are terrestrial and spend their time hunting on the ground. However, like most amphibians, they return to water when it's time to breed and lay eggs. On land, they're easy to spot with their unique coloration, but when in the water, they rank among the top most difficult amphibians to film, lying flat, half submerged in the water. One never knows what he'll discover when out in nature. At Saugatuck, our target species were butterflies, but the day led us in a totally different direction. The main point is to just remain observant, and just when I had given up, I was treated to an unexpected surprise. Today we're lucky to discover the beautiful black swallowtail caterpillar feeding in a patch of parsley. The caterpillar has extraordinary color patterns of green, black, and yellow. Black swallowtail caterpillars are commonly found in parsley, dill, carrot, fennel, and Queen Anne's lace. The bright colors are a warning to birds of a foul taste and toxins within. Black swallowtail caterpillars will molt 5 times before spinning a cocoon. Each molt is called an instar, and the caterpillar's color and texture are different during each phase. After the 5th instar, a cocoon will be spun, and the caterpillar will become a pupa. The pupa will remain inside the cocoon all winter and hatch as a butterfly in the spring, a process that is still somewhat mysterious to science. The caterpillar's body liquefies inside the cocoon and miraculously reconstructs as a butterfly. This caterpillar may sometimes be mistaken for the monarch butterfly caterpillar, but there are 2 simple ways to tell them apart. The monarch caterpillar has horns, and in the northeast feeds exclusively on members of the milkweed family of plants. We'll continue to monitor the black swallowtail caterpillar as it continues to develop. Hopefully, I'll be able to locate the cocoon and monitor its development through the autumn and winter seasons. Now that we're on the topic of insects, let's take a look at the world of macrovideography. Along the ground, a large millipede crawls. The Latin name for this particular species is the following: Aphelora virginiensis. They're common in forests throughout New England. Millipedes have 4 legs per body segment, as opposed to centipedes that have 2 legs per segment. However, each millipede body segment is composed of 2 segments that are fused together to form one. This is difficult to notice with the naked eye, but if you look closely at the first couple of body segments, you'll notice they have only 2 legs. The first few body segments are not fused. Most millipedes are herbivores and feed on decomposing material on the forest floor. It's interesting to note that millipedes are not members of the insect class. They're members of a unique class called Diplopoda. Remember, only bugs with 6 legs are technically classified as insects. Please note the bright yellow color patterns of the Aphelora. As a defense against predation, these millipedes secrete a chemical weapon that contains traces of cyanide, so be sure to wash your hands if you should ever handle one. Notice how this millipede stops every so often and smells the ground with its antenna. It's not just out for a casual stroll, but it's on the trail of something. Sometimes we take for granted the activity of the guests on our program, but in the world of nature, there's no time for leisure. Every action has a reason. Stay tuned, folks. We've still got a lot more to come on this week's episode. Sometimes the salamanders live near the ants because they eat ants.
Oh, good.
So if we check some of these other
Hey,
rocks
look, he got
nearby. Okay. Now, you notice these kind of look like the newts, right? They have arms and legs, they have the same type of body, a long, narrow body. But, where do these live?
On land.
Yeah, they live on land. Now, don't hold them by the tail, okay? You have to hold them with your whole fist, because what happens is when they get scared here, they break their tail off their body.
And they're going new.
And then they run away. So you wanna hold them like this, okay? Yes? Those are whirligig beetles. Hello friends, I'm Will Michael with this week's edition of Nature Notes. During the winter months, the forest often seems barren and empty, but we can use the bare trees to our advantage. The lack of foliage allows for a good view into the woodpecker family of birds. Let's start with the smallest. The downy woodpecker is only about 6 to 7 inches tall. Males have a red crest on the crown of their head, while the females lack red plumage. The hairy, shown here, looks almost identical. The main characteristic that differentiates these two species is size. The hairy is about double that of its smaller relative. The red-bellied woodpecker was once absent from many forests in New England, but now they've returned and are more common, a true success story. This male is hunting for beetles that hibernate under the bark. The largest woodpecker in the Northeast is the pileated. This one is a female. If it were a male, he'd have what appears to be a red mustache in addition to the red crest. She methodically hammers away at this tree. After a few minutes, a large hole is present. Her beak is designed to withstand the constant pounding. She'll use her long sticky tongue to extract ants and other insects from inside the wood. In the spring, she'll hollow out a large cavity for a nesting site, but that's a topic for another episode. If you're coming down with a case of cabin fever,
Grab a pair of binoculars and hit the winter trail. I'm Will Michael with Nature Notes. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
One of my favorite insects is the dragonfly, and the perimeter of a pond is always a good location to observe their activity. The dragonfly is arguably the best flying creature on Earth, even surpassing birds and bats. The two pair of independent wings allow the dragonfly to hover perfectly in place like a helicopter. Notice how the wings flex and bend as a strong wind blows past our subject. Dragonfly eyes are among the most developed in the entire insect world. The eyes take up most of the head. As we zoom in to extreme macro mode, you'll notice just how large the eyes are in relation to the rest of the head. The highly developed compound eyes allow the dragonfly to speed through the air and change directions on a dime. They also hunt on the wing, and their powerful eyes enable them to zero in on other flying insects and track them through the air. Also notice the tiny hairs on the face and back of the head. These characteristics are hard to notice with the naked eye. Dragonflies are carnivorous, and adults spend the early part of the summer hunting in the forest and pond perimeter. When it's time to breed, they mate near the water, and then the female deposits her eggs underwater. The larval stage of a dragonfly is aquatic, and it spends its adolescence hunting other insects, small fish, and amphibians underwater. The larva hatches in early summer as a winged adult, but its days are limited. After spending the summer months in the air, the dragonfly will die shortly after breeding and laying eggs. While on the lookout for dragonflies, a garter snake is discovered. This garter snake must have recently completed a meal. Notice the thickness of the center of its body. We've often heard that snakes smell with their tongues, but this is somewhat of a misconception. There's an olfactory sensor inside the mouth, and as the tongue is pulled in and out, air passes over the organ. So the tongue does not actually do the smelling, but aids in the smelling process. The perimeter of the pond is a perfect hunting ground for this non-venomous snake. Garters will eat just about any animal they can catch, including frogs, mice, slugs, worms, insects, spiders, and small birds.
Well, friends, we've come to the end of this week's episode. I'm Will Michael, and you've been watching Connecticut Naturalist. Stay tuned in weeks to come as we continue to explore local wildlife. Until then, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Right. We're here today with this wildly friendly cormorant. By me, she's looking at the camera, mate.
Yes. Just take a big.
But the day had other plans. I lost it.
One never knows what he'll discover when observing nature. The main point is to simply stay alert. What is it? Where are we going? Oh, at Saugatuck, butterflies are target species, but the day led us in a totally different direction. It's all about awareness perception.
All right.
Tommy Turtle, sitting in the sun on a summer's day. You are relaxing on a log in the month of May. turtle, napping in the leaves when May apples bloom. You know, when the fruit is ripe, it's the month of June. You say you're a slow-moving fellow, always taking your time. But don't rush through life, that is your advice. Every day is divine, my friend. Tommy Turtle, where do you hide when it's cold outside? Underground, you hibernate the months of the winter time. Tommy Turtle, living a life in between two shells. When you fall down on your back, how do you flip yourself? Don't rush through life, that is your advice. Every day is divine, my friend. Tommy Turtle, sitting in the sun on a summer's day. You are relaxing on a log in the month of May. Tommy Turtle, I'll see you again when I'm out in the pond. Goodbye, I'll see you next time. See you next time in the summertime. See you next time in the summertime. Goodbye.
This is Alfonso Raccoon, reminding you to stay tuned to Connecticut Naturalist as we continue to explore wildlife in the weeks ahead. Thank you and good night.